Hi, you're listening to It Happened to Me, a rare disease and medical challenges podcast. The mission of our podcast is to support you, our listeners, and to create community as you confront the toughest challenges in life. All of us will experience health hardships. The real question is how we adapt. That's the focus of It Happened to Me, which wants to help you overcome limitations and live a full and satisfying life. Drawing on their own health challenges, co-hosts Cathy Gildenhorn and Beth Glassman interview guests who share stories and research to help you succeed in the face of difficult health obstacles. It happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.
In this episode, we are joined by Sarita Edwards, an inspiring leader, award-winning advocate, and mother to Elijah, who lives with full trisomy 18, also known as Edwards syndrome. Sarita is the CEO and president of the E.WE Foundation, a global advocacy organization that supports families impacted by trisomy 18 and other rare diseases. Her son's diagnosis during pregnancy launched her into the world of patient advocacy, healthcare policy, and education.
Sarita is also a fellow podcaster. She is the host of Being Rare podcast and has been recognized globally as a top patient expert and social health ambassador. With a strong background in healthcare administration and as the mental health first aid instructor, Sarita brings a unique and powerful voice to conversations about care, equity, and compassion in the rare disease space. We're honored to have Sarita with us today to talk about her family's journey and to make sure no parent facing a trisomy 18 diagnosis feels alone.
Sarita, welcome to It Happened to Me today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's start by introducing our audience to your son, Elijah. Please tell us a little about him.
Yeah, today Elijah is 8 years old. He is headed to third grade. We just finished his second year of school. He is honestly doing everything we were told he never would. He is.
Isn't that great? That's wonderful.
Yes, he is. Right now he's enjoying summer. I have 5 children. Elijah is number 5. 4 of them are home. My eldest kid is an adult and he lives about 4 hours away. So he's not home. But, I think right now he's just enjoying having everybody here all day, every day. He is learning more and more how to control, his just wheelchair movement and use a gait trainer. It's not the typical response to tell us about your child that most parents give. It's not even the same response that I would give about my other children. But these are huge milestones for Elijah. Just so many things that we never expected him. Well, let me not say we didn't expect him. I think we were hopeful and expected these things. We were just told that he never would. And so it's really good. It's really good to see him doing so much of what we hoped for anyways. And so yeah, he's a little rascal. He's a snuggler. He loves a good snuggle. He has his way of communicating. He's
How's
our
he
Elijah.
doing in school with friends and with other kids? Is it accommodating to his needs? How does it work?
It's really, really well. I was very, very afraid of what school might look like for him, just because it was different. Making the decision to send him to school was one of the best decisions ever. It has really just grown him socially. The school system is very accommodating. He has a one-on-one in the classroom who supports him throughout the entire school day. His teacher is amazing.
Is that through his IEP, through his health insurance, through Medicare? How does that work?
So it's through, we do have an IEP for him with the school system. And honestly, we have a team at school. So we have speech, we have physical therapy, we have occupational therapy, that we receive those services through our school system. But
that's great.
they also work really, really well with our pediatrician to just make sure we're not missing anything. Like it's really, really great care coordination.
It's
Created a
wonderful.
special ed environment. It's wonderful.
Yes, it is
But
amazing.
at the beginning, for those that aren't familiar, can you explain what trisomy 18 is and how it affects the body?
Yeah, so trisomy 18 is when there is a third 18th chromosome on every cell in your body, or on some of the cells in your body. Elijah has full trisomy 18, which means he has that third chromosome on every single cell in his body. It does affect, I would say every organ. We got a really huge, scary description when we learned of our diagnosis, and they really called out almost every single organ that was impacted. I could probably tell you the organs that they didn't call out a lot quicker than I could the organs that they did. So it affects every organ in the body, just intellectual development and all the stuff. And we were told, just based off the high mortality rate and the statistics of what trisomy 18 is, to not even expect Elijah to survive the full-term pregnancy.
Wow.
And so, the mortality rate is very, very high. We were told 97% is what we were told. We have since learned, that only 5 to 10% of children born with this condition will live past their first birthday. So we recognize that Elijah is an anomaly within an anomaly, because he is 8 years old. But it does affect so many different things, just honestly from head to toe. We do have a medical team of about 23 specialists. I think we're up to
my
about
goodness.
3. And then we have our pediatrician. So I think we've finally made it into the 20. We may be at 25 because we just got some new specialists this year.
Yes.
So it does affect a lot.
Right.
But essentially that's.
So can Elijah walk?
He can walk with the support of a gait trainer. Yeah, he can walk and take steps, and he actually started taking steps independently. About a year and a half ago. It was just kind of like a stagger. Actually, now he can actually go from one point to another, and take some steps before he stumbles over.
Proud of himself for doing that? Yeah, I bet.
I think so. I think, and then too, I think it helps that we make a huge celebration out of it too.
Sure.
Yes. So I think he recognizes, wait, that was something new. Did I do that? Like, you can see him trying to figure out, did I make myself make that movement? Even little small things like, moving his hand. You can see him concentrating, like, I'm making my hand do that. So yeah.
Can he speak, Sarita? Can he communicate with you?
Well, he does not have words.
No words. Okay.
Yeah, he does not have words.
Like pantomime at all? Or he can't use his hands that way? He will.
He has this sound movement where he will elevate the pitches of his voice. And so he can, if he does like a that's him maybe just making a sound. If he does like this, like a he's maybe trying to get your attention. If you still don't respond, he may make that second sound and clap his hands, so he's trying to get your attention. So he has his own way of communicating. It's just, us figuring out what he's trying to tell us. So so it's his normal that we just have to figure out.
Exactly right. I can remember with my children that there was a time before they spoke where they were trying to communicate with me. And I can remember just picking up different things in the kitchen, what is it? And trying to communicate. And I kept thinking, he must think I'm so dumb that he is trying to tell me what he wants and I don't understand. So when you just said that, any parent knows what you're talking about, that they're communicating in their way, and it's our job as parents and caregivers and just lovers of children to figure out what it is they're trying to say, because he's definitely trying to reach you. So Sarita, you said that you found out about this during pregnancy. Was this done by a blood test, or how did you find out about this diagnosis? How did it happen?
So it started out with a routine ultrasound.
An ultrasound.
We were just there for a routine visit, and the ultrasound, it raised some concern, and the doctor said they wanted us to follow up with maternal fetal medicine. And so, they coordinated us an appointment. And when we saw that doctor, that was the first time that we actually heard the trisomy 18 diagnosis.
I see.
And so,
but it's not rare enough that the doctors hadn't heard of it. They knew what they were looking for, or they knew there was a bump that they had to pursue. Which was it? Did they know the condition, or did they know there was an issue?
I think they knew. I think recognized it more so a bump. I think for them it looked like something that raised concern. And so the maternal fetal medicine, they wanted them to actually confirm it for us. And so even if our OB team, if they thought trisomy 18, they never said it to us until after the specialist did. They did give us the opportunity for a blood test to confirm, what they were thinking from the ultrasound. And they gave us the option for an amnio. But when they told us the risk of the amniocentesis, we declined it, and we just did the blood draw, and it did come back again, showing the same thing. And so, honestly, that was when our care changed. Having had 4 other children before, I knew what to expect for prenatal care. And things shifted, with Elijah when that diagnosis was presented. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, what was that like the first couple of days? Here you've got 4 children. You've been down the parent road, but now this is going to be very different, and different not only for you, but your children, your family. It's going to be different. How was that information digested?
I think initially it was really, really hard because I think it started with receiving information about what trisomy 18 is. When the maternal fetal medicine doctor, gave us the overview of this is what this means. He told us Elijah was missing, and he was giving us this information from the ultrasound. He told us Elijah was missing 3/4 of his brain, that his esophagus was offline, that his stomach was outside of the cavity, that he had VSD in his heart. He said that one of his kidneys was cystic. He had bilateral cleft lip and palate. I mean, the description, that he
was
gave
horrific.
us, it was very horrific. It was very monstrous.
How did you process this?
I think in the initial moment, I think I was so overwhelmed and so caught off guard. I was crying. So my husband had to say, my husband had to ask him to stop talking. Can't you give her a second to catch her breath?
Yeah, sure.
Because he chose to start describing what we were dealing with. I was still laying on the table, partially closed.
Yes.
I wasn't even sitting upright, in a chair having this conversation. And so, my husband had
so
to
vulnerable.
You're
such in a vulnerable way. Oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. It truly was one of the worst experiences with healthcare. And so I think in the initial moments, it was really trying to wrap my brain around how do we get here? Is this genetic? Is it, is there something in our family history that we weren't aware of? How did we get to child number 5 before this ever become. So it was a lot of questions about, just our family history and all the stuff. And then I think we found ourselves, I think, I don't think I was ever in denial. I think I didn't want to talk about it because it made it too real. So I kind of kept it to myself. I didn't talk about it. I thought
Did you
about
tell
it, but
the
I never,
children? Did you tell your children?
not,
No.
not immediately, not
Uh-huh.
immediately.
Speak about how
Yeah.
you were introduced to this. We'll get into it later as we get into your podcast and your advocacy. But wow, was there work to do, because that was the most insensitive presentation imaginable, both in terms of your vulnerability sitting on the table and in terms of the way they approached the medical issue. It's just, there
absolutely.
was so much work to do, which brings me to an interesting question. Trisomy 18 is often labeled as incompatible with life. What are your thoughts on how this is presented to parents and everything presented to parents? And how have you seen it affect conversations with families and providers?
I think because is termed incompatible with life, I think that's why we received the information the way we received it. Because there's this idea of, there's no expectation of survival.
Absolutely. I just can't wrap my head around that. I mean, it's just something, I don't even know how they label something as incompatible with life. If there's life, there's gifts of joy. And I mean, to present it this way is the complete antithesis of that concept.
I think because, because the system, they know more about this diagnosis than the moms carrying these babies.
Sure.
And so I think because they have that knowledge of the high mortality and the prognosis, and because they have that, they choose to present it to families in that way. And I truly
It's
believe,
hopeless.
Yeah. And so I think that's why, I think in terms of how it impacts those conversations, it's because they are privy to that information. But they don't have the lived experience, for the families on the other side of it. And so, and I'm one of those people, give me the facts and give me the data, but don't strip my hope away. And I feel like that's what a lot of our conversations were. Whenever we tried to present, but what about, we were always reminded of the prognosis, of the high mortality, of that 97, 98%. It was never not part of the conversation, because they wanted to reiterate, don't get your hopes up. One doctor said, we don't want to give false hope, but hope is hope.
Yes.
And
right.
And that's all I wanted as a mom. I just wanted to have some hope. And they just chose not to give that or support.
Well, I think Elijah is awfully lucky to have you as a mom. I think that having that hope, I believe in that. And not giving up on him. And he's your little bundle of joy. And no matter what, you're going to do your best for him. And he clearly has thrived and beaten the odds. I mean, this is really a miracle we're talking about here. And it's beautiful. I love the way you talk about his milestones when he reaches them. That may not be according to a chart that a doctor would have in his office, but it's his milestones, and you're celebrating those. And that's so, oh my gosh,
that's beautiful.
It really is. It's just wonderful.
It's loving and it's beautiful.
So you're talking about, I wonder if you could elaborate on the misconceptions of this disease. You talked about how the doctors presented it to you. So let's talk about the misconceptions that people may have about children living with trisomy 18.
I think, when I think about the misconceptions, I think we're coerced into believing that that if a child with trisomy 18 survives, they're going to be vegetative, or there won't be any personality there, that it's going to be complex care, to which it is. I think for me, don't assume that I don't want the difficult thing. I think because the difficulty of providing care and all that it takes for a trisomy 18 diagnosis, I think because our healthcare system knows that it's going to be non-traditional care, it's assumed that a family might not want to deal with. And I think the only way to know if a family does want to deal with it is to ask. And that's not something that was ever, that was not something that was ever afforded to me. No one ever asked me.
Rare is trisomy 18. How unusual is it that a child is diagnosed with it?
I think the numbers say it's about 1 in 5,000. 1 in 5,000, yeah. And so I think for me, I think the misconceptions really stem from not talking to families or not finding out what life looks like for families outside, the prenatal window. What does this journey look like now that this child has been born and you've taken him home? I think misconception is in a box. And because a lot of the conversation starts with the OB team, because for a lot of families with trisomy 18, you get the diagnosis in utero. I do know some families who, they have received their diagnosis post-delivery, but a lot of families, they do get this in utero. And I think because that incompatibility with life is there, because that prognosis and the high mortality is there, the misconception is this is all you can expect. But I think it's because their experiences are limited on what it looks like now that we've made it past this moment. And so for me, if we had listened to what the healthcare system told us to expect, we would not have celebrated Elijah's 8th birthday this year, because because their expectation was so small and so granular.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Sarita, you talked about that your child would have no personality. That is impossible. You could have a child that wouldn't have your personality. I mean, impossible that this child is going to thrive because you're part of this child. Just speaking with you, your child is going to be a very special person because you are. The way you speak, your love, your compassion, and never once have you talked about, gee, I've got 4 other kids and this is going to be difficult. Not once have you said that. All you've talked about is the love and joy for this child and certainly all your others. You just, well, the healthcare really, they haven't run into you. And there are a lot of people, Sarita, also like you, who want to love and to foster their child, to give them the best life they can. So I think when you say we need to reorient our healthcare system, there's no doubt about that, because the gift of love and hope is so powerful. And I think you've shown that. You've shown that through your son, and what a gift you've given to all of us, to the world, in having your son be here with us today.
Beth.
And what is really quite amazing is not only is your son achieving certain milestones, but now he's involved with the Special Olympics, which is really just, it just brings a smile to my face. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the Special Olympics and what that's meant to him.
Oh my gosh. This was our first year. 2025 was our first year. And the school actually introduced it to us, and, they sent some paperwork home and said that because he celebrated his 8th birthday, he was eligible to participate. I had heard of the Special Olympics, and, some of my older kids who are football players, the football team, they have worked with Special Olympics before. So
Oh,
I knew a little bit about what
right.
it was, but for him to actually be one of the Olympians, it was new. I would say Elijah loved it. I know I did. It was really fantastic to see the effort placed around creating opportunities for these children to compete, but not only to compete, but to compete in a capacity that where they could feel like winners. They
Right.
were,
Oh,
the leg races, they all had their gait trainers or their electric wheelchairs, and it was fascinating to see an organized sport that met their ability. It wasn't,
yes.
it wasn't just including them into a race that they could not win. It was
Uh-huh.
really it's crafting a program where all of them would be winners. And
That's
um,
beautiful. I
I
love it.
loved it. It was so fun. It was
I
so
love
fun.
hearing about it.
It was
Yes.
amazing. I truly, truly
Oh,
enjoyed it. I really did. And Elijah actually participated he did a leg race with his gait trainer. He
Right.
did a ball toss where they measured the distance of the ball. So it was their version of like what is it called? Like the shot put. It was
yes. Yes.
it was their version of that. So he participated in that. And then I feel like he participated in one other thing. He was happy. He was,
Oh,
moving his wheelchair around. It was
Oh,
it was just the best. And then too, I think I also loved how they created opportunity for, you know, the football team and the cheerleaders and all these other typical students to participate. And so they
oh,
were there serving as volunteers, and they were, cheering the students on. and
oh,
and I
that's
think,
wonderful.
it was amazing. It shows them how differences don't have to be bad, and differences don't have to be
Right.
scary.
Yes.
You just have to
Yes.
you know what
understand
I
what these
think you
differences
should have
mean.
done? You should have videotaped this on your phone and sent it to the doctors and caregivers that gave you the diagnosis just to see what the possibilities are, even with challenges. And I think it's
Yes.
important that they see that so that
Yeah.
they're able to visually, they'll have to expand their minds if they see that. So I think that would be wonderful.
Well, you gave me an idea because, of course, I did record some. So
Of course, I knew you.
I do have video, and I did not consider sharing it. But I'll be more than happy to share it.
From an information education perspective,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than for them to see a patient that they know. It's not an
Yes.
anonymous patient. It's someone that they know, and they know what their expectations were and how they
Right.
presented it to you. And just to see the
Yeah.
opportunities,
Yes.
it's incredible. It's beautiful. But Sarita, I have to say, you're not only a mother, but we're getting into it now. You're also a fierce advocate. And I want to know what led you to start E.WE Foundation, and what does E.WE stand for?
So let me answer the second question first. E.WE stands for Elijah Wayne Edwards.
Oh,
Those are Elijah's initials, and we actually came from, because Elijah was born with bilateral cleft lip and palate. My husband, he wanted to prepare our other children for the first time
right.
that they saw him. They were staying with family while we were at the hospital, and when he left to go pick them up to bring them to the hospital, he wanted them to not be afraid that Elijah's face was, going to look different, and that, it was open. So he said, he was like, he looks like a little E.WE. And so what a E.WE was, I don't think he gave that any thought. He just said, he was like, it's just really cute. He looks like a little E.WE, and it just kind of stuck. And
Oh,
so when they
that's so Wonderful.
When they came to the hospital, I think they were expecting this cuteness because he had already prepped them to see that when they saw him.
Any of the other than the cleft, which I get was there visually, were any of the other possible limitations, conditions, issues that the doctors pointed out from the ultrasound that when you were speaking, the stomach and everything else, was any of that actually there?
The only thing that was there, he was born with VSD, which was the cardiac issue that they told us about prenatally. He did have the cystic kidney, but we did have our pediatrician set us up for a cranial ultrasound that showed that all of his brain was present. They told us that only a fourth of it was there, but all of his brain was present. We did find in, I think it was 2024, sometime 2023, 2024, we did some work with our nephrology team. Okay. And even though Elijah has one working kidney, the other kidney did show that it was cystic. This test that they did showed that he had another kidney in there. And so he actually had 3. So
for goodness sake.
And so it was hid.
I guess.
Yeah, it was hid. And they could not. And so the blood work that they did this little extensive MRI type exam. And so what they put this dye stuff in through an IV, and they were trying to figure out where is it going, and they discovered that it was going to another kidney that's actually functioning.
How could they wire it so that they were connected, the 2 good kidneys and not the bad kidney?
Well, they're connected.
Right. You know? How do you what about the kidney that doesn't work? That's amazing.
Just leave it alone.
Oh,
and they wouldn't even take it out. They would just leave it there.
Just leave it.
Right, as long as you have the 2.
Right. And I think we thought the one kidney, because initially the conversation with the medical team was, the one kidney is doing the job of 2. That's what they've always said. Yeah. But just with this past year and a half, they actually found another one.
Yeah.
But everything else, his stomach was inside the cavity. He does have GI issues and different things, but we know that that's just from the diagnosis and the makeup of his body. He had barium swallow studies and different things. His esophagus and everything, nothing seems to be out of place.
Good. Beautiful.
Now, the cleft palate, was there surgery to repair the cleft palate?
It was. We actually connected when we established our medical team, because Elijah, he spent the first 7 months in hospice care. And so we were sent home post-delivery in hospice. And so at 7 months, they said, it's time for us to reinsert. We can put him back in hospice, but you're going to have to stop trying to do life-sustaining care. And I told him, well, I'm not going to do that.
Then you need to be, you can go in and out of hospice.
And so, we were like, well, we're not going to do that. I tell people my background prior to having Elijah was in healthcare, the administrative side of healthcare. And so I knew that world and I knew that language, and I started treating Elijah like a patient that I would help in the hospital. And I just remembered, how would I help another mom navigate this? And that's what I started doing for my son.
Thank you for listening to this episode of It Happened to Me. We encourage you to learn more at ithappenedtomepod.com. Please use the contact form on our website to submit your guest suggestions, comments, questions, ideas, and feedback for the show. You can also email us directly at ithappenedtomepod@gmail.com. We would really appreciate it if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app like Apple or Spotify. This helps others in the rare disease and medical challenge community find us. It Happened to Me is created and hosted by Kathy Gillenhorn and Beth Glassman. I'm Keir Deneen from DNA Today, and I serve as our executive producer and marketing lead. Amanda Andrioli is our associate producer. Ashlyn Anokian is our graphic designer. And remember, it happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.